Thank you, my friend. Take a look at this photograph. You know who that is? That's right, that's me, as a little child. You can see that I'm smiling in that picture, but if I were to tell you honestly, my childhood was really intense and very, very challenging. It was right about that time that my father developed paranoid schizophrenia, which led to him taking his own life. It's very, very intense and very, very difficult to grow up with. And my mind and body coped by developing what's known as CPTSD, or complex PTSD, the form of this mental illness that develops for people who suffer trauma in childhood. There are many of us out there who are suffering from a condition that maybe started in childhood that was very overwhelming. One of the best things that we can do for ourselves is provide for ourselves self-validation. That's when we're able to use self-talk, where we are making sense of ourselves, and in particular, making sense of our inner child, the child that lives within us, the childhood that still exists within us, that we can use a practice of validation in order to dialogue from adult to child within. And I'm going to model that for myself in today's episode, and hopefully you can get something from that where you could practice self-validation on your own between the adult that lives inside you and the child that still lives within you. Before we begin, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. We just put out a video that focuses on the 4 basic practices of mirroring. And take a look at that video so you can understand sending, receiving, validation, and reflection. So click that subscribe button right now. In a moment, I'm going to begin the self-validation practice. What I want you to look for are the keys that will help you to practice this on your own. Focus on the idea of you make sense to me, being able to set aside any kind of judgment or any beliefs or opinions that you're used to, and be able to stretch across your world, to walk across that bridge and see the causes and effects that led to why this being is the way they are. And when you're able to do that for yourself, it's such a warm and wonderful awakening and healing. Let's begin. Little Michael, you make sense to me, and here's what makes sense. It makes sense that once your father got sick, everything changed for you as a little boy. That suddenly the man that was your hero was sitting in his bathrobe all day, listening to the radio and hearing things that weren't there. That your father was taken off to mental institutions and was sometimes given electric shock treatment into his brain. And the way that he was with you was so intense and so difficult, and how he was trying to make you into his own psychotherapist. It makes sense to me that your body was filled with dread, and that everywhere you went was a sense of threat. And it makes sense that all this energy would make you need to move, make you need to run, and that you would wake up in the middle of the night and take your bike out and bike through the streets of Brooklyn, New York, and wind up going over the Marine Parkway Bridge, over to the Atlantic Ocean, the beach of Rockaway Beach, and just sit there on the beach alone as a young boy in high school who should be sleeping in the middle of the night, but instead needed to feel safe in his body, so that you would go to whatever length you could in order to feel that soothing, to feel that quiet, that being at the ocean in the middle of the night provided for you. Do you feel like I'm understanding you so far? Excellent. Well, it makes sense that this condition would still be with you today. How intense a relationship it is with your father, and the immensity of the loss, of how things within you never got developed during this time, And so you're stuck with this condition that was there protecting you and doesn't know what else to do other than protect you. It makes sense to me that you feel a sense of anger, because there's still a big stigma about people going through this kind of suffering, and so many of us do. And people don't feel understood, and that the world doesn't know how to work with us and accept us and allow us to live our lives and speak our voice. Do you feel like I'm understanding you? Thank you for receiving my validation. I hoped you gained something from watching me offer my own inner child a self-validation. Maybe ask yourself some questions and perhaps write a comment that lets you feel like your voice is being expressed. If you want to go deeper with this work, here's a couple of things to think about. You can try an intro session on Zoom with me and experience mirroring practice for yourself. It's very powerful, it's inexpensive, and it's a wonderful way for you to say yes to your own personal growth and healing. Something else you could do is take a look at this book here, The Zen of Solo Travel, A Journey from Anxiety to Enlightenment, now in its 10th year. An amazing story about my awakening in Japan and all the learnings of the solo journey that we all have to go through. Thank you, my friend.